All right, we ran into Big Cat and PFT. They are old friends of the show. We go back about 10 years ago. I think we were at the All-Star game in D.C., and they wanted to come by and watch our show just to see how to do this. And now look at them. Pardon My Take is one of the biggest podcasts, sports podcasts that we have, and Barstool Sports. I started out by asking the guys how they met.
We met online.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hinge.
Modern, very modern.
Yeah. Raya, actually. Yeah. No, we would get accused of stealing each other's jokes, and we followed each other, and be like, oh, he already said that, and then I DM'd PFT, and I was like, hey, like, I think you're very funny. You want to go on a date? You want to make this official?
It was a bro date, yeah. I remember we went out for beers in Chicago, and then I was pulling through Chicago about a year later, and Big Cat was like, come stop by the Bird's Nest, which is the best wing place in Chicago.
Yeah.
So we stopped by there, had some beers, and he kind of threw it out there. He was like, we might be getting some money at Barstool Sports to invest in podcasts. Like to do a podcast. I was like, yeah, I'm in.
Yeah,
Let's talk about it.
That was the thing. It was I always thought PFT would be perfect at Barstool and working together. I always wanted to work with him. But we were at a point in Barstool where it was 8 people, and we were kind of not living paycheck to paycheck, but we were still young, very small. And then we got bought by a guy named Peter Chernin, the Chernin Company, and part of them buying us was to give us some cash, move to New York, hire some people. I think PFT was maybe the second or third hire when that happened.
Yeah.
And then it was just kind of all off from there.
What was the moment, or was there an interview or a moment where you go, things just changed?
Maybe Joe Buck. Our good friend Joe Buck, the first time we had him on.
Joe Buck was big.
He had no idea who the hell we were.
Yeah.
And we were very weird in that interview, but he seemed to like us. And then, people would aggregate you after the interview. So we saw, all the headlines come out about Joe Buck. And I think Joe saw a little bit of a shift online at that point where everybody hated Joe Buck before because no matter what team you root for, at some point, Joe has said something bad about your team. So you think that
or
he hates you.
Or you perceived that he has.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, so he's commented accurately about the state of your team at some point, and then you take that as a personal slight, which I still do sometimes to Joe.
Oh, definitely.
I think he still does hate the Commanders.
Yes.
But he started to see a little bit of a shift. Like, he got some more love online. People are like, I used to hate Joe Buck, but now I think he might be likable.
Yeah, our best compliment that we get is when we have a guest on and they're like, I hated that guy, but you guys made him fun, which is kind of a backhanded compliment to the person. But yeah, it's that, and I think when ESPN sued us right out of the gate, because we did kind of take their logo and everything, and but they fell for it and they gave us a headline.
But you wanted that. You knew what was going to happen.
We didn't think they'd sue us, but we obviously knew what we were doing in terms of the name and poking fun at sports media, and then them sending us the cease and desist and us making. I think they expected us to play by the rules of you get a cease and desist, and then you stop the stuff, you don't talk about it. Whereas we just instantly made it. I think it was an emergency podcast, and we had Dave. His dad is a lawyer. We hired him as our lawyer, and we made a whole mockery of it, and it just kind of off from there.
I wrote a cease and desist letter to ESPN demanding that they cease and desist sending us cease and desist letters.
Right.
They never thought about that before.
They fell for the trap.
They got all the high-priced lawyers in the world, and they didn't have the brain of a 7th grader like I do. And so it was like, okay, all right, balls in your court, chess move.
We're talking to Big Cat PFT, Barstool Sports. Pardon my take. The Barstool Van Talk, did I bring that to a close?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
you killed it.
If we had been able to light you on fire, I think that show exists today.
Yeah.
So.
Because Van Pelt was the first guy.
He
right?
was.
Everyone loved it. The bosses at ESPN loved it, and then Dan Patrick comes on. Something about these guys I don't really care for.
Are you
much
glad
anymore.
you got canceled?
Yes.
Oh my God.
You're welcome.
Yes. Yes.
It was
Thank
the best.
you.
Have you ever had a big cancellation of plans? I had one last week where I canceled a vacation, which sounds like it might be bad, but the second I canceled it, I felt great. I'm going to just stay at home and enjoy my time. But when you get a TV show canceled, it's like that times 100.
Yeah.
It's like you don't have to do all that work anymore.
Yeah. It would have been bad. It wouldn't have been sustainable. It was a really good lesson in that if a lot of people would be like, oh yeah, if you get a no, keep asking. The process of getting the show on ESPN was it was like 9 months. A ton of lawyers, a ton of back and forth, where they weren't bought in. But there was a couple people who had our back and wanted us to try it. But we should have realized at that moment, like, they're not going to defend us when things go awry.
I'm shocked that they got into business.
Yeah.
That's where somebody goes, man, I hear these guys are popular. Let's
Yeah.
get in business with them. Not realizing what made you popular.
Right, right. And the funny thing is, now ESPN, I mean, Pat McAfee, who's a friend of ours who's, like, so entertaining and so talented, I think ESPN's changed where that was, if it were today, they probably would have had a lot more of an appetite for it.
Absolutely. So you guys have a big announcement.
Yes. Big
Sources close to me tell me.
Yes.
By the way, I worried about the show when your third guest ever was Paulie.
Yes, that's true.
Like,
That's true.
That big third episode,
I
really.
know.
Do you remember what we talked about?
Man, I remember getting a call during dinner, and Big Cat goes, "What are you doing right now?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"Nothing." You're like, "Not nothing. You're about to join the show."
Yeah, we some of the early interviews were tough, where it was just, we were just digging for all of our friends. I think that was exhausting all of our friends. I think it went Chris Long, Bomani Jones, Chris Long, and then Paulie. And it was like, all right, we don't have any more friends.
They sent me a
I
lot.
think we went Martin Shkreli, the farmer bro.
Yeah.
And then we're like, who else? Oh, I guess we could have Paulie on. Yeah.
Good company.
Yeah,
Good
so,
company.
but appreciate it, because we wouldn't have had a guess.
you got Skrillex on. I mean, you guys.
Yeah.
Okay, so the big announcement is.
Yes.
Massive announcement.
Massive announcement. Exclusive to Dan Patrick Show. We are writing a book. The Two Dumbest Guys in the World. We're going to write a book. We figured.
Is that the title?
Yeah,
Well,
it
that's
should- it
actually
could
not
be.
a bad idea.
Yeah.
The two dumbest guys in the world wrote a book.
Yeah. We've been asked to write
Wait
a
a
book.
minute, hold on. How about a round of applause?
Thank you. It's a lot of work. By the way, we just talked about how great it is to cancel plans, so there's a very good chance we don't write this book. But we've been asked to write a book a bunch of times. We've gotten to the meeting point, talking about it, and then finally this year we're like, you know what? We're about to hit 10 years. You know, we've been very successful, very blessed. I think it's a cool story that we've, you know, a lot of partnerships don't stay that long, so we're going to write a 10-year kind of the history of Pardon My Take, and a lot of stupid stuff in there as well. We actually had a meeting. We hired a ghostwriter, and our first question to the ghostwriter was like, hey, you got to be ready. Like, we're going to do a chapter where we interview you, which I don't think you're supposed to do with ghostwriters.
We're also going to have the ghostwriter write that chapter.
Oh, I was going to say, you guys
Right,
write.
we have to interview him, and then
He's
he
gotta
has
then
to
write it.
He has to interview us and ask us how the interview went,
Yeah.
and then we'll explain to him.
This
then
sounds
he'll
like
write it.
a cease and desist, sending a cease and
yeah.
desist
Yeah.
to tell you about the
Correct.
cease and desist. Okay.
Correct.
But yeah, I mean, if there's anything you know about me and Big Cat, we're voracious readers. Yeah. We can't.
That's actually the title from the guys who don't read.
Can't put those things down.
The
those
book.
books. Yeah. There will be an audiobook for those of you who like to listen to it.
By the way, the reason why we're announcing it here on your show is that you do have to write a chapter for us. We're going to farm out most of this book.
Okay, what constitutes a chapter?
Well, it could be as many words as you want. We don't care. We're going to double space the whole thing.
Yeah.
Indents.
Can I just put a bunch of pictures of myself up there?
Absolutely.
Listen,
Absolutely.
We're big readers.
Huge font.
We're just trying to
pictures.
get to that like 250-page number. So
Oh, that's
however
it?
we get there. I don't know what it's going to end up being, but it is going to be real. Like the ghostwriter. So we're going to write a lot of the book. The ghostwriters, how we're going to do it is it's going to be year by year. So the year history is going to be us being interviewed by the ghostwriter, and then in between we'll have some of our friends. We'll write some chapters, some stupid stuff. It's going to be barely readable.
There will be tons of pictures. We were actually talking about putting like a word search in there, like basically make the entire book out of the back of cereal boxes. That's
Yeah.
kind of what we're going for.
Yeah.
But we're going to have a chapter. I think Hank's going to write a chapter for us.
But he can't use autocorrect.
Yeah, we're not going to edit anything. It's just going to be whatever
I would
he
do
says.
like serial killer chapter, and then just have the font being all of what a serial killer would.
Yes, the ransom note.
Zodiac.
Yeah.
Yes. Or cut out of magazines.
Yes.
I mean, my favorite author probably Brett Favre. A lot of pictures, mostly text. Keep it short.
Yeah. Don't say Brett in pictures.
Yeah.
Yep, don't say that.
Yeah.
But no, we're excited to do it. I think it's going to be a fun new thing that
And then
we
they'll
can try
make
to-
a movie out of it.
Yeah, probably not, but yeah, sure. It's gonna be fun though because we're gonna go down memory lane. Like, there's a lot of stories that we probably haven't told. You know, getting more into depth about the whole ESPN Barstool Van Talk, how close we were to possibly leaving, and all that stuff. So I think it's gonna be interesting, and it's something that we didn't want to write a book just to be like, hey, here's a book. but 10 years does feel somewhat monumental in this business.
And we've got Hank going through the archives right now of all the old pictures. He's got an extensive blackmail file of pictures, like never before seen. The ones that you've seen Hank put out, they can be very bad pictures of us, but he's got tons of them.
He has nudes of me.
Yeah, just real bad stuff.
No, he does. We had George Brett, and we did a terrible. I think if you guys remember, we had Mark Schlereth on the first time, and we peed our pants, which was very good. That was a big moment.
Big Cat peed his pants.
Yeah.
I tried, but I was gonna.
great.
I was
Schlereth
gonna.
was famous for,
For peeing his pants.
Yeah.
So then we had George Brett on, and we're like, oh, what's he famous for? Oh, pooping his pants. So we got diapers, and we put chili down our pants. Didn't really land the same way. But anyway, we had the whole bathroom wired with GoPros. And after we finished, I went to clean up and stripped nude, not realizing the GoPro was on the entire time. And Hank afterwards was like, I have all this footage. Like, all right, well, you have all this footage.
So yeah, maybe we'll put Big Cat's nudes. That'll be a big selling point. But yeah, a lot of there will be a lot of pictures, but I think we're going to take parts of it seriously too,
Yeah,
where people want to hear
definitely.
some of the story of behind the scenes, some stories they haven't heard before. So it's going to be a fun challenge.
I think you could do the Fabio pose on the cover with your hair flowing.
I like that.
Holding Big Cat in your arms.
Fabio, when he got hit by the bird.
right in the forehead.
Yeah.
You could do them.
Yeah.
Well, round of applause. They've
Thank
done
you.
it. You know, the odds were against him. 10 years. Congratulations, guys.
Thank you. And also congratulations, by the way, on the Sports Emmy.
We didn't win.
Nomination, sorry. I want you guys to win so bad because it would have been the funniest thing if you won the year after McLovin left. I wanted that so bad.
It's better for our business if we don't win.
Yeah. Maybe like, well,
Like the worst thing to happen to the Cubs is they won the World Series.
yeah, that's
You
true.
know,
That's one way to look at it.
We're the Cubs.
But what year are you in your retirement tour? You're doing like a 7-year.
No,
you're
no.
Coach K of media.
No. I gave a 4-year.
Okay.
Now it's 2.5.
Okay.
2.5 to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, 2.5 to go.
So don't exaggerate. You know, you guys want to announce your retirement here on the show?
Yeah.
How many years?
I think I have 10, 15.
That sounds about right.
No, you
Still
got to be.
strong.
I gave 4 years, and boom, 4 years.
Okay.
If there's ever a year where we have, like, the Cubs win the World Series, the Commanders win the Super Bowl, the Caps win the Stanley Cup, and the Bulls win the NBA championship,
People will not listen.
I think people. Well, I was
safe.
going to say we'll retire at that
Yeah,
point.
I think we're safe.
You're safe.
That's never, ever going to happen. But yeah, there's a little bit of truth to that where people love to hear us lose. So,
Yeah.
And being from DC and Chicago, there's a lot of fodder out there. Yeah.
But I don't really want to. I think we could do this for as long as people listen. You know, I think there will be a point where we become the old men, which will suck in its own right. But if people are listening, we have the best job in the world. Why would you stop doing that?
Got emotional there. Got sentimental.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. That's it. PFT, Big Cat. Congratulations on the book, and
Thank
thanks
you.
for joining us.